Imagine the silence of a Sunday night, shattered not by a sound, but by a chilling, methodical act of savagery. The victim, Father Anthony Crean, a devoted priest in the village of Stoke Poges, Buckinghamshire. The killer, a young man he had tried to help, a man named Patrick Mackay. On March 21, 1975, Mackay walked into Father Crean's presbytery. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong. This was calculated, personal, and profoundly brutal act. He dragged the priest to the stairs, grabbing a small axe from a box of firewood in the passage. He pulled his victim upstairs to a bathroom and dumped him fully clothed in the bath. There, with both taps turned full on, Mackay pulled a knife from his pocket and stabbed Father Crean a dozen times. Then he picked up the axe and sank it into his former friend's head 6 times. He sat next to the bath for an hour, waiting for the priest to die. He then meticulously stole the priest's clothing and his personal money, demonstrating a chilling blend of calculated theft and extreme rage. Finally, then he climbed out of a rear window of the building and made his escape. This extreme violence horrified even the seasoned detectives. This single act of unthinkable barbarity ripped the veil of peace from rural England. It confirmed what many feared. The Beast of Belgravia was not just a common criminal. He was a serial killer operating with absolute impunity. Patrick Mackay, a man who confessed to 11 murders, was suspected of many more, whose full victim count may never truly be known. Tonight, we peel back the layers of fear and denial to expose the shocking truth behind Patrick Mackay. Patrick David Mackay was born on September 25, 1952, in Liverpool, England. From the outset, his life was plagued by instability. His father, a merchant seaman, was often absent and reportedly abusive. His mother, struggling with mental health issues, found it difficult to cope with a volatile household and a son who quickly became unmanageable. By the age of 5, Mackay was already exhibiting deeply disturbing behaviors. Cruelty to animals, fits of uncontrollable rage, and violent outbursts were common. These weren't just mischievous childhood antics. They were significant red flags. His school reports were a litany of disciplinary problems and disturbing incidents. He was diagnosed with a severe personality disorder and even schizophrenia, though experts now lean more towards psychopathy. He was sent to various institutions, psychiatric hospitals, and approved schools throughout his childhood and adolescence. These attempts at rehabilitation, however well-intentioned, largely failed. Mackay was a master manipulator, able to charm professionals while secretly harboring a deep-seated rage and a growing desire for power and control. He learned to feign remorse, to appear cured, only to revert to his violent tendencies upon release. As Mackay entered his late teens and early 20s, his criminal activities escalated dramatically. He began with petty theft, burglary, and vandalism, but his methods quickly became more aggressive. He developed a pattern of breaking into homes, not just to steal, but to terrorize the occupants, sometimes holding them at knife point, experiencing a chilling thrill from their fear. His victims ranged from elderly women to shopkeepers. One particularly disturbing incident involved him attacking a priest. These weren't random acts. They often involved a sadistic component, an enjoyment of the power dynamic. He was incarcerated multiple times, but each release seemed to fuel a more dangerous version of Patrick Mackay. In 1973, while living in London, the violence took a darker turn. He befriended and then brutally murdered Isabella Griffiths, an elderly widow. This act marked a significant shift. It wasn't just about theft or intimidation. It was about the act of taking a life. He then desecrated her body in a manner that shocked even seasoned detectives. He was captured, but due to psychiatric assessments and an escape from a mental hospital, he was transferred to a secure unit rather than facing a murder charge directly. Crucially, Mackay was deemed dangerous, but also treatable. This assessment would have catastrophic consequences. Upon his release from a secure psychiatric unit in 1974, against the advice of some who knew the true depth of his depravity, Patrick Mackay was let loose on an unsuspecting public. The next 2 years would unleash a torrent of unimaginable violence across London and the southeast of England. His victims were diverse, often chosen for their perceived vulnerability. Elderly women, shopkeepers, priests. He targeted individuals who lived alone, often using their trust against them. His methods were brutal and varied: stabbing, bludgeoning, strangulation. He confessed to 11 murders, but police strongly suspect he was responsible for many more, perhaps as many as 20 or even 30. Let's look at some of the confirmed victims and the horrifying circumstances surrounding their deaths. Adele Price, 1974, an elderly woman living in West London, bludgeoned to death. Sidney Goodall, 1974, a 56-year-old shopkeeper, found dead in his store. Mary Hines, 1975, a 70-year-old widow, stabbed repeatedly in her home. Father Anthony Crean, 1975, a priest Mackay had previously encountered, brutally axed to death in his own Presbyterian kit. This particular murder, with its cold calculation and extreme violence, sent shockwaves through the community and heightened the hunt for the killer. Frank and Amy O'Toole, 1975, an elderly couple, also murdered in their home. Ivy Davies, 1975, another elderly woman, killed in her flat. The fear in London was palpable. People were afraid to open their doors, especially the elderly. The police were under immense pressure. They knew they had a serial killer on their hands. But Mackay was cunning, leaving few clues. What made Mackay so terrifying wasn't just the sheer volume of his victims, but the sadistic nature of his attacks. He wasn't just killing. He was enacting a perverse fantasy of power and control, often leaving his victims in horrific states. The brutality was consistent. The motive was simple: control and a twisted sense of pleasure in the act of taking life. The investigation was hampered by the lack of direct links between the crimes and the fact that Mackay was a known psychiatric patient. The public fear was justified. They knew a monster was walking among them, and his violence was escalating with every passing week. The hunt for the killer intensified after the horrific murder of Father Anthony Crean. Police began to connect the dots, recognizing the pattern of extreme violence, the targeting of vulnerable individuals. Patrick Mackay was already known to authorities due to his extensive juvenile record and previous violent incidents. The investigation was a race against time, as the public demanded answers and justice. Ultimately, the hunt for Mackay would reveal the depths of his depravity and the impact of his actions on society. His capture came in March 1975, following the murder of Isabella Griffiths, a crime that eventually connected back to him after initial assessments. He was picked up after a suspicious incident and, once in custody, began to confess. But Mackay's confessions were a double-edged sword. He was a pathological liar, prone to exaggeration and manipulation. He confessed to many murders, some of which he later recanted, others where the evidence wasn't strong enough for a conviction. However, his confessions to Isabella Griffiths' murder, Father Anthony Crean's murder, and the murder of Adele Price, among others, were corroborated by detailed evidence only the killer could have known. He was eventually charged with 5 murders. During his interrogation, Mackay displayed a chilling lack of remorse, even a strange pride in his actions. He described his crimes in graphic detail, revealing the depths of his depravity and the calculating nature behind his violence. It became clear that this was not merely a troubled youth, but a fully formed psychopath. Patrick Mackay's trial was a sensation. On November 26, 1975, he was found guilty of 5 counts of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. The judge, Justice Michael Davies, recommended that Mackay should never be released, stating he was a danger to the public. This tariff, or minimum term to be served before parole consideration, was set at 20 years. However, given the extraordinary nature of his crimes and the judge's recommendation, Mackay has remained incarcerated. He has attempted appeals and sought parole over the decades, but each attempt has been met with refusal, recognizing the continued threat he poses. The case of Patrick Mackay sparked intense debate about the justice system's handling of dangerous offenders, especially those with severe mental health issues. Questions were raised about why he was released from psychiatric care, despite clear warnings from some professionals. Could more have been done to prevent his murderous spree? The true number of his victims remains a haunting question mark. The police believe he was responsible for many more killings that were never officially linked to him. This uncertainty adds another layer of chilling mystery to his story. Patrick Mackay, often overshadowed by more famous serial killers, represents a terrifying manifestation of unchecked psychopathy. His story is a stark reminder of the potential for evil that can lurk beneath the surface, and the profound impact it has on countless lives. He remains incarcerated, an old man now, but still deemed too dangerous to ever walk free. The scars he left on British society, the families he shattered, and the questions he raised about institutional responsibility continue to resonate. The Beast of Belgravia, though locked away, serves as a chilling testament to the darkest corners of human nature. Thank you for joining me on this difficult journey. Stay safe, and remember to be vigilant. Hit the like button if the story chilled you, and subscribe to Zuncover for more. See you next time. Goodbye.